Hey everyone, welcome to the 2021 NBC Sports Edge Fantasy Basketball Draft. I am Matt Stroup, and over the next 90 minutes or so, we have a great group of experts here taking part in a 12-team, 9-category fantasy draft. I'll be moderating in an attempt to keep this thing on the rails. We're starting in just a minute, but first, let's take a second to meet our experts and look at the draft order. Dr. A himself, Steve Alexander, will be leading off. Just a massive dilemma for him who he's going to take first, followed by Renee Miller and then Josh Lloyd from Basketball Monster. Fourth, fifth, and sixth goes Jared Johnson and Aaron Robinson from NBC Sports Edge. Then Dan Besbris from hoopball.com. Raphielle Johnson, seventh. Bleacher Report's Jonathan Wasserman is eighth. Dalton Del Don from Yahoo hits ninth. And then from NBC Sports Edge, it's Ryan Knaus, Jonas Nader, and Vaughn Dalzell, 10 through 12. This will be a 9-category head-to-head league, a format that most fantasy basketball players are very familiar with. Those 9 categories, of course: field goal percentage, free throw percentage, points, threes, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, and turnovers. Steve, I think this is about to be your floor.
Whoa!
Why don't you take us through what's been?
I've only got 20 seconds.
Oh wow! It's all happening right now, Steve.
I got 20 seconds to make this pick. Nikola Jokic is the pick on paper.
Okay.
It is the pick that should be happening, but I am taking Luka Doncic.
Wow.
With the number 1 pick. Even though everything, I mean, I know it's not the smart thing to do. It's not the way things are supposed to go. And Renee Miller just got a huge gift fall into her lap.
Yes, she did. So you took Doncic. I'm a little stunned. I kind of thought you had talked yourself into Jokic. Renee gets Jokic second, as we now have Jared Johnson on the clock. Steve, I don't really foresee myself taking Harden fourth in many leagues. Would you agree with that?
I am okay with Harden fourth, especially with Kyrie maybe missing half his home games, half his games. I mean, James Harden is James Harden. He's assists, he's points, he's threes, steals, blocks. He's awesome. So I don't have a problem with it.
Can we just talk about how prohibitive of favorites the Nets are? Who, even on with half a Harden without Kyrie, still was a foot away from that Durant three from with it beating the eventual champs. And I mean, if it's basically just health, man, versus the field, the Nets just look absolutely loaded.
Yeah, and the Nets are deep, and I guess my only worry is the regular season is just not super important to that team. So the memories of those hamstring issues are just so fresh for me with Harden.
Sure.
So since
there'll be a lot of resting. There'll be a lot of resting for sure. Because all they care about is the postseason. No question about that. With fantasy, it's a major concern with that team. And
speaking of potential rest, Aaron takes Jonas fifth overall, with some recent news out there that Jonas told a Greek TV station that his knee is still bothering him. That's a little nerve-wracking. Damian Lillard goes, Steve, you look like this is the first time hearing that. Lillard sixth, Towns seventh, Kevin Durant eighth, and then Dalton, you took Jason Tatum ninth. Talk us through that pick.
Yeah, I was wondering if Giannis was going to come to me, and that's definitely a debate. That's the biggest, hottest topic right now, what to do with Giannis. Tatum, he was so good down the stretch last year. I know he was a lot without Jaylen Brown and Kemba Walker, but he's a 23 years old still, star. I personally really like going guards early in fantasy basketball drafts, and I know back in the day it used to be opposite, but there's so many more centers eligible. You can get the blocks later. Waiver wire, man, it's always a rush to get points and assists, so I go after the guards. Go ahead.
I was just going to say Giannis's knee bothering him is like the least surprising news out there. I'm always a little concerned about the knee of Giannis.
The amount of red in this first round, the Yahoo icons for injuries is just terrifying. You've got half the first round has some sort of injury designation already. We saw Paul George go 10th, potentially a monster workload for him, and Bradley Beal 11th. To Jonas, and that puts Vaughn Dalzell from NBC Sports Edge on the clock for 2 picks. Actually, he made his picks.
You know who doesn't have a big red cross by their name is Anthony Davis. That's weird.
So Embiid 12, Trae Young 13th to Vaughn, and then that brought Ryan took Anthony Davis, and Dalton, you're on the clock, so you have the floor once again, sir.
I believe I'm one away.
You're one away. You're right. You're one away.
All right. And by the way, I said I take guards. I took Tatum, who's forward eligible, but I meant the stats of the points and the assists and the threes there. And I have my eye on a guard here who would be considered a reach maybe on ADP, but I'm going to back it up here with another guard that I'm going to take a little bit early. We'll see here if I'm when I come up on the clock here. But that's been my strategy just in these lately last couple of years is really attack those stats. And these the big guys are just bigger health risks too. I mean, Embiid the most upside possibly, but who knows? His minutes per game really dropped in the second half last year. So that's been my strategy. What do you think, Dr. A, about these big, the Anthony Davises, the Embiids, the centers?
I'm scared to death of most of them. Anthony Davis is day to day every single day for the last 2 years. And Joel Embiid,
in the same breath, though, guys, I'm scared to death to pass on Anthony Davis at 14. I mean, this is a guy who, this is a guy who's been a number one pick, like in a lot of years. And what has really changed other than, a rough season last year? I mean, for all the locker room trips, for all the game time decisions, he hasn't missed that many games in recent years. And now you're actually on the clock, Dalton, and you actually made your pick. So that was your guy, Dalton? Fred VanVleet?
Yeah, Van Vliet's my guy. I mean, Kyrie went one pick before, obviously, on a per-game basis. He could be a top 5 guy, but there are multiple concerns with him, obviously. But, yeah, Van Vliet, no Lowry. Dragic is there, but I'm in, man. He's so good, and I think that the minutes are just going to be there. I just think it's going to give him all the run he can handle on that Toronto team.
I love it. The only thing I don't like about that pick, Dalton, is that you had to take him at 16. Yeah. No, I love Van Vliet. It just, I think I have dreams of him, him sneaking into the low 20s maybe, but seeing you take him there, I think I'm reaching.
I know it's a bit of a reach. You could probably get him late second for sure, maybe even early third, but I love him and he wasn't coming back.
I would argue it's not a reach. I love the pick. Steve, what are your thoughts on Van Vliet at 16?
Oh, I love it. It's a great pick. Did Ryan get auto picked there?
For Kyrie?
There went Nikola Vucevic.
Oh boy. Well, I'm not drafting this one, so I can't yell and scream. After Dalton took Van Vliet, we saw John Wasserman from Bleacher Report take Bam Adebayo. Jimmy Butler goes 18th to the Cornet Game Hens. Who is that? Someone's changing their name to confuse me. Is that Raph? That's Raph. Okay, thanks, Raph.
Yeah.
And then Vooch goes to Dan Besbris from Hoopball, and now we have Aaron back on the clock. Aaron, who should be here chatting with us, but we're thinking of you, Aaron.
Sabonis.
And he took Sabonis, a guy that Steve and I were talking about on Monday on the Roundball Stew podcast. We both love him, Dalton. Are you fully on board with Sabonis monster season coming?
Oh, yeah. He looks fantastic. It's fine to get him here. Like I said, I'm just going guards really, but if not, nothing wrong there. I mean, Ty Warren, who knows his questionable status. Sabonis was actually the number 1 fantasy player in 9 category leagues over the final month. Last year was like 11 game sample, but still, that's not bad. It's hard to argue with the pick with that production in last season.
Yes, Sabonis finished just on a crazy, crazy hot streak to close out the year. And the recent reports from Rick Carlisle that he's encouraging him to shoot more threes, made 0.8 of them last year. So more threes, a big man averaging, whose floor is 20 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists. You absolutely got to love that, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Rudy Gobert just went to Jared. Dude, I'm worried about my queue just getting destroyed right here. I'm 3 picks away, 2 people pick in front of me, and I don't have a good feeling. Oh,
well, there goes Levine. Was that one of your guys?
Nope.
Okay. And then there goes SGA. Who? So Steve, you got your queue is intact at this point?
Gonna take, my queue survived. All my teams are gonna look exactly the same.
I knew who one of your picks is here. Yep, that was it. That was the one I was sure you were making. I had you absolutely getting LaMelo Ball at 24 or 25, and there's Michael Porter Jr. Very, very on brand for you there, Steve.
I have not steered away from the. It's absolutely my draft.
Love the aggressive picks. Yeah, MPJ is going to be a monster. Ball's so good. As I mentioned, a Warriors fan. I mean, Ball instead of Wiseman might have just been it would be such a nice fit. Just really, man. Ball looks fantastic. It looks like he was just bored, when he was playing against a weaker competition overseas, and he's just the kid can play. He's highly impressive.
Yeah, I think we're gonna look back next year, and Ball is going to be the guy who's going to be in the first round next year that you were able to get, around
Agreed.
25. I would bet a jersey that LaMelo Ball is a first round fantasy pick next year.
I would also take that bet. I mean, I wouldn't take that bet. I would make that bet. I think he's going to be too. And look at that, LeBron James, 27th. Woo.
One behind Julius Randle. How funny if you would have said that a year ago.
Are you guys? I think that LeBron is one of the hardest players to figure out in fantasy drafts this year. Personally, you're pretty scared to pass on LeBron when he's potentially the third player on your team, a guy who for so many years has just been an anchor of a good fantasy roster. It doesn't it get really tempting there, Dalton, early in the third round?
Yeah, especially in head-to-head. So maybe you can afford a few missed games here and there. You got him for your fantasy playoffs. I mean, he's LeBron. I think the worry is just Westbrook's going to have a huge usage rate, and obviously his age and just the load management. But yeah, at some point, it's King James and it's round 3, and yeah, you have to pull the trigger.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to drafting LeBron, but it's just weird seeing him as a third round guy now. It's doesn't feel real.
Well, Jaylen Brown follows that up, 28th to Jared. Aaron takes Donovan Mitchell at 29, and that puts, I believe, Dan Besbris on the clock, followed by the Cornet game hens who continue to confuse and befuddle me. Dalton,
awesome.
I love Dalton, Mitchell. I love Mitchell.
Yeah, I want to hear about Mitchell. Go ahead.
Yeah, he's going to move into like mid round 2 next year. I love attacking the point guards early, and I think he's just really and he learned how to develop his game even further when he tried to play through that sprained ankle. And I just think, I'm in on him as a mid third round pick, big time. I think it's going to be a whole round earlier next year. It would be my prediction.
I like to hear that because go ahead, Steve.
Well, I was just going to say the TNT crew, Charles and all them were kind of mean to him last year, and I think he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. I think it's a good year to have Donovan Mitchell on your squad.
And at 30, Brandon Ingram, followed by De'Aaron Fox, followed by Russell Westbrook. A couple exciting, dynamic point guards with some percentage issues, Fox and Westbrook. And then we see Christian Wood, Dalton, 33rd. I got to say, I'm a big fan of that pick. We only have a couple minutes left here, guys, but go ahead, Dalton. Talk us through it.
Swing from some upside. I don't have any big man stats here. So John Wall gone. No one else on that roster. Why not? I mean, you can go out. Yeah, I'm in on Christian Wood.
I was really hoping Wood was going to be there at the end when it got back to me, but whatever.
Whatever. It's too early to be saying whatever, Steve. So, Dalton, you end up with Tatum, Fred VanVleet, and Christian Wood. I got to say, I like that a lot.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe a little above ADP, but I'm happy with it too. I looked at what spot I had in the draft. I kind of had my eye on those guys, so it went as planned, right or wrong.
And Steve, you're sitting on Luka, LaMelo Ball, and Michael Porter Jr. I think you should just stop drafting now. I feel like your draft is complete. It doesn't even matter now.
Yeah, I mean, my life is complete. My draft is complete. I noticed that my guy DeAndre Ayton was just taken. That kind of bums me out a little bit. But yeah, this is about as on brand as it gets for me.
Incredible.
And I know there's going to be people who are like, I stopped watching right after the first idiot took Luka Doncic, but I told you why I was doing it.
Well, I love it. I mean, I kind of knew. I guess ultimately we should have known you were going to do it, but
I mean, I feel like I sort of had to do it. I'm the president of the Luka fan club. I can't just let him go to somebody else at number 4, right?
Yeah, I'm going to listen back to this when I listen back on the podcast and rewatch it. Your language was very deceptive. I think you threw a couple good pump fakes in there, though, that Nikola Jokic is the pick on paper, and you threw a few misdirections. Dalton, Steve, thanks to both of you. Aaron, thank you, and sorry about the audio issues. Want to say, though, we got our next group coming up in just a second. But first, I am being told that October is not just spooky season. It is also prime fantasy basketball draft season. And we are here to help you prep for your drafts with the NBC Sports EDGE NBA Draft Guide. It is packed with hundreds of player profiles, rankings, projections, tiers, mock drafts, custom scoring, our ADP trend report tool, and more. Just go to NBCSportsEdge.com/NBA Draft Guide to sign up for it as part of the Pro tier, which gets you access to fantasy and DFS tools for all of our sports, in addition to basketball, including football. And don't forget to use EDGE10 for 10% off any annual subscription. We now welcome in our second group of experts. It's Ryan Knaus from NBC Sports Edge, Renee Miller picking second overall, and from hoopball.com, Dan Besbris, who said offline that he's in a lightning storm. We're hoping that Dan is, well, maybe not actually in a lightning storm. Dan, you're indoors, I hope.
I'm indoors, yeah. I mean, I'm in Los Angeles. This is not a thing you're supposed to have to concern yourself with here. I really thought it was someone moving a dumpster in the alley behind the building, but I'm told it's actual weather.
Renee, you were given a gift by Steve Alexander. What a generous thing he did, letting you have Nikola Jokic second. What a great start to your night.
Oh. I knew that was coming because Doc always has some unusual picks. So I had my fingers crossed behind my back there. And it makes me look smart. I love it.
That was a tactful way to put it, Renee. Some unusual picks from Doc.
I think I drafted behind him in this league last year, and it was fun.
Yeah, well, and I was going to reference last year because, Renee, if memory serves correctly, I think you took SGA last year as well in this draft. Does that sound right to you?
Yep, trying again.
So you're back. He was really good on a per-game basis last season, only played in about half their games, feeling confident that – he's less of a down the stretch shutdown candidate this year.
Yeah, and a lot of usage and fast pace. Yeah.
Dan, let's talk about your picks so far. You took, this is a Matt Stroup squad with your first two picks. You've got Damian Lillard and Nikola Vucevic. That's a dream start for me. And then you end up with Brandon Ingram in the third round. That's an intriguing one.
When you and I do pods together, we tend to agree on almost everything. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to lean into a build. This is head to head. I do mostly roto. I can sort of forego a few things. And I don't know if I want to like tip my hand completely at this point. It's probably relatively obvious the category I'm not super attacking after these three. Ingram, not a guy I usually take at 30, but I thought he fit well with this club, a team that actually can score. That's not a team I generally draft, so I'm rolling with it. I took someone else who actually takes shots.
Ryan, right before you, Jonas took Anthony Edwards. Was that a pick you were thinking about making when you ended up taking Tobias Harris?
I'm glad you queued me up for that one because that was precisely what happened. He was taken off my board. I would have had Anthony Edwards had it not been for that. Thank you very much. And prior to that, my draft is off to a rollicking start because Steve mentioned Kyrie Irving, and it was a suspect pick by me to take him that early with the COVID vaccination unknowns and everything else. That was indeed. I was trying to help Aaron help out his audio issues, and in the process, I caught some crossfire in the form of an auto draft, but that's okay.
Wow.
Hey, Kyrie has top 10 upside. Someone was going to take the plunge, in round 3 probably anyway, so got him a little earlier than expected, but it's not the end of the world, and I lock up a pure number 1 point guard in the second round. Followed that up with Ayton because this is a 2-center league. I know a lot of people don't like that format, but you still have 3 guards, 3 forwards, 2 util spots. It's not the end of the world, and only 4 centers off the board. So I don't want to tilt things too much, but I would expect to see a lot of centers in a hurry coming up. And I like my forwards, and Tobias is built for 9-cat, and Paul George should have a monster year without Kawhi for most, if not all, of the season.
Ryan, you're showing a tremendous level of maturity there with that auto pick. You're so poised. I would be so upset. Renee, when something like that happens to you, are you as calm as Ryan?
No, I would be all flushed and flustered, and definitely couldn't justify it as well as he did.
Yeah, well,
I am one that's very, and I'm very cognizant of the 2-center rule because I underestimated that the first year that I played in this league, and it was not good. So I probably overdraft centers now, but I'm not going to do that here. I've got another pick coming up. I think I'll get my guy there. So I'm going to take another guard, DeJounte Murray, who could take that next step. He could end up being one of those Kyrie Irving type point guards.
Well, we're going to see Steve Alexander make a couple unusual picks here, but Dan Besbris, I want to talk first about your 4th rounder, Drew Holiday.
I had no intention of drafting him in this league, but there's no reason why he should be there in the middle of the 4th round. That's how a lot of my drafts end up going, is I have this list that I'm working from, and then I look up at the board and I'm like, well, I assumed that guy was going to be gone before he got back to me. What did I get him? 42, 43? I know he played in the Olympics. There is a concern of wear and tear after the finals, but this is a guy that was around 20 on a per game basis last year. I don't see any real reason why his per game numbers should suffer, and he missed 13 games last year anyway. So around that same mark, I can weather that storm even in head to head. He's just too good to be there in the middle of the 4th round.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Renee just went big. A big swing from Renee at number 50, Isaiah Stewart. Renee, tell us why you're so high on the young Pistons big man.
I was really high on him last year. I loved him last year. I thought, when he played, when he was given the opportunity, he was a double-double machine. No Plumlee. I think Detroit is going to be a really exciting young team, and providing that he can stay healthy, he'll be worth it. And I'm not picking again for the better part of 2 rounds. So it's a get your guy when you can kind of pick, I guess.
Yeah, I like it. And recent reports that he is, I believe, improved as a 3-point shooter. He flashed a little bit of a 3-point stroke as a rookie, so that's always highly intriguing, a guy who could help out in a lot of categories. Right after that, we saw Yusuf Nurkic go, OG Anunoby, and then I believe that puts Aaron on the clock. Ryan, what are your thoughts on some of these recent picks?
Well, I'm mad to see Isaiah Stewart go off the board. I love him, and I think that's a great pick. As Renee said, he's poised for a big year. The 3-point shooting will be huge, and there was a quote today from Coach Dwayne Casey about how Stewart has looked much better with his jumper. He's gotten in his reps, and he has the green light to shoot 3-pointers. So everything you'd expect and want to hear from a guy going into the season. I like that pick. I did say only a handful of centers had been drafted earlier. I'll amend that. There's more centers than I initially thought, but I'm still considering picking up another big man with my next pick. Definitely it adds that sort of positional flavor to the draft when you do have to fill that and then consider a backup, a third center. So I'm debating because they dry up pretty quickly. So that's in the back of my mind as I approach this pick. But much like Dan, I have my list and I look back and sometimes I'm shocked to find a player that I wanted is still there. This draft is going the opposite, however. Every time I look back on my queue, it is decimated and I keep having to pivot to my spreadsheet to find the next guys I want. Hopefully the next 2 picks won't do that to me again.
You know what trick I'm using right now is I'm watching our live stream and I can see when my name is about 4 slots away and I just disappear to go build a 4-player
That is the way to do it.
Dan, you are a guy who I think unabashedly is down to draft kind of boring dudes. And I think that Jonas Valanciunas is kind of the epitome of like a good boring dude in the 5th round. So tell us about that pick a little bit.
Yeah, I love JV, and I think I'm amending my strategy a tiny bit mid-draft here with Drew falling to me in the 4th. I think I can make a better play at field goal percent than I thought I might after the first couple of rounds, and JV covers that for me. He's also another center that doesn't block a ton of shots, but rebounds very well. So I might just have to leave blocks on the table at this point, and that's fine in head-to-head. It's not sort of a traditional punt blocks team, but I'm sort of walking into a soft punt. I think they call it a soft punt, and that's okay. So I think my team's pretty good in everything else.
I think it's called a pooch punt in NFL terms then, right? Isn't that the
we don't trust
Ryan.
our coverage team.
Ryan. Robert Williams, the Time Lord 58th for you, Ryan.
That was a decision I might have taken him anyway, but once Valanciunas went off the board, who is a kind of safer guy, he's got a nice floor, you're not too worried about that pick in round 5. And then Porzingis went off, and he was the real risk-reward player who I had tabbed as worth a shot. Hey, I've already got Kyrie with my second pick. I might as well throw caution to the wind. But, he went 1 pick before to, I think, Dalton, and Time Lord is there. I know the NBC Sports Edge crew is high on him, so it's not like I was going to get him. I guarantee Jonas would have taken him in the next couple picks. So I'm happy to land him, as I said, especially in a 2-center league.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Jonas went Lonzo Ball right after you, a guy that I love, Renee, around pick 60. Are you on board with Lonzo in that range? It just feels like a bargain to me.
Yeah, it does. And then I think, wow, Chicago's really got like a lot of mouths to feed, using a football analogy or football phrase. So I'm not sure. I think that team could be like a super powerhouse of the league and really turn around from what we've seen the last couple of years with the moves that they've made. If, Levine can live up to potential, and Ball could certainly be a big part of that. But I'm a little nervous about usage with so much talent in one place.
That's fair. And I think that's the only reason that he actually
lasted this
that
long.
Late. Yeah. And I don't know if that's a good way to think about it by me. Maybe that's just a bad thing. But I'm like, yeah, that's.
I think it's worth the risk. I mean, like from this point on in the draft, I'd much rather, unlike Dan, maybe I'd rather take a shot on a guy who could be a top 20 player versus one that I know is going to be top 70.
Dan, you have a draft board behind you that's like.
I know.
That's very distracting, isn't it? But I promise you, it's better than the unmade bedroom behind it. So you're all welcome for that.
It's just like the in-progress draft. I'm thinking to myself, do you have like 10 friends over right now, and you're doing another live draft that you paused, and you're going to finish putting the stickers on that draft board after we finish this?
This is a souvenir from last year. I tried running one of these live shows, and it's really hard. So I was sitting it out while everybody else was drafting, and then a group that we worked with was building this in one of the windows. It was a really cool idea, but things were moving kind of fast. But they finished it afterwards, and I said, hey, can I have that? Because my studio, my office is also just a 5 foot by 4 foot corner of my bedroom. Hello, 2-bedroom apartment with 2 children. And this is great. This has created a green screen for me, except the problem is 7 years from now, it's going to be the same draft board, and it's going to be really out of date.
And that team that has Derrick Rose, Blake Griffin, and Jeff Teague is really going to be struggling like 7 years from now. Ryan, Terry Rozier, 63. That just feels like the sweet spot for Scary Terry. Yeah. Do you feel good about that? Do you feel resigned to that? What's your overall impression of that pick?
It's interesting you threw resignation in the mix. I guess, yeah, there's a tinge of that. He has, eligibility at point guard and shooting guard, which I needed. I don't think he's going to quite reach the heights of last year because now you have Gordon Hayward back and healthy, I should say, and you've got Kelly Oubre there, so there's more competition, but I still expect, I kind of view 60 as where he'll land. So not the kind of home run pick. I doubt Renee would go with this, given her philosophy of taking moonshots on players, more in the safe play range with Rozier at 60 plus.
I'm sure Renee saw Kevin Porter Jr. go off the board at 65 and was perhaps hoping. Were you hoping for a KPJ to make it back to you, Renee? Is that?
I might have made that move. With my next pick, I have a similar kind of person in mind.
Okay.
But I like Rozier. Okay. I like Terry Rozier a lot.
No, I do too, and I didn't mean to imply resignation, Ryan. I think he's solid. It just feels like, I don't know. It's like he's kind of exciting. You know, it's just Terry Rozier.
I feel like Renee just tipped her hand as to who she's picking next. Someone kind of.
Oh, do you guys want to play
Porter
a guessing game?
Well, I would assume it's a. Well, okay, go on, Matt.
Let's before we name drop, let's just quickly talk to Dan about his pick of Derek White at 67. Dan, make the case for your guy there.
So I wanted Rozier and then I wanted Mikal Bridges, and then they both disappeared. I like Derek White. I think he has a ridiculous amount of potential. We're all talking about DeJounte Murray, and for good reason. He's very, very good. Derek White was never quite healthy last season. When he is, his field goal percentage is generally a lot better than what we saw last year. Free throw percentage is good. He hits threes now, boards, assists, steals, and blocks. I think he has the potential to be a really sneaky, maybe better in roto than head-to-head, which is, dumb because this is a head-to-head draft. But he was still there, and it was either White or Gordon Hayward for me at that point. And I thought, and Hayward just went off the board. I took a swing on someone who I think might be better on the defensive side.
Okay, that makes sense. And now we have Renee on the clock. So you can name drop freely, Renee. Tell us about what you're thinking about doing here.
Oh, will you guys admit if I pick who you thought I was going to pick?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
Oh,
no.
That is not who I
Didn't
had
guess it.
you taking there, Renee. But I like Slow-Mo. He was a lot of fun last year.
Yeah, he can do a little bit of everything, and again, I think a player on a pretty steep upward trajectory. And this team too. I mean, they play with a lot of pace, and they're good on both sides of the ball. It's, they're competitive, so people are playing their full allotment of minutes. I feel like
Slow-Mo's in the Dan Besbris sweet spot as well, Dan.
You mean older? Yeah, I do love it. I mean, I love my well-rounded roto guys, and I have to tweak things a bit for a head-to-head draft, and it's a tiny bit uncomfortable for me, but I'm getting through it.
All right. Well, the good news is you have gotten through it because we had 3 rounds to get through. We're done with those 3 rounds. I want to say thanks to you, Dan. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate you guys coming through. If you are looking for more great or maybe just serviceable fantasy basketball advice from myself and the other members of the NBC Sports Edge team that you've seen and will see on this show, then look no further than our fantasy basketball podcast, Roundball Stew. It airs live on the NBC Sports Edge YouTube channel every Monday and Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern, starting Wednesday as well this coming week. We break down the latest news, rumors, hot streaks, and slumps from the NBA to find out what it all means for fantasy managers all season long. You can expect even more weekly episodes coming to YouTube as we ramp up toward the start of the NBA season, and be sure to subscribe to the audio version anywhere podcasts are found. We are halfway home here, 6 rounds down, 6 to go, and our third group features Raphielle Johnson and Jonas Nader from NBC Sports Edge, as well as basketball monsters Josh Lloyd. Jonas, I want to start with you for a second. It's been a kind of an exciting draft for you. I feel like you've been over the moon ever since the Jaren Jackson Jr. pick. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Not to mention Ant Edwards in round 4, who after tonight, watching the preseason in the background, good luck getting him in round 4 after this. He looks insane. He wants to average 2-3 steals a game. He's 6'6". He was like the focal point under Chris Finch in his last 15 games. So I'm just ecstatic about round 4. And you know how I feel about Jaren Jackson Jr. round 3. I'm just super over the moon about him. Like I said, only 2 seasons in NBA history with 16 points. I think it was like 1.6 blocks, 1.5 threes. That's JJJ at age 20 and Kevin Durant at age 29. So just insane upside here. No injury discount baked into his ADP this year, but I'm still happy around 3 because I wasn't getting him past that. We all know that because everyone knows what I'm doing here. So.
All right. Well, Josh Lloyd, you just took Colin Sexton 75th overall. Is this a guy you've been targeting in a lot of drafts?
He falls a lot in drafts. Like, he's not someone that I'm particularly enamored with, but getting a 20-point per game scorer with pretty good efficiency is not easy to do when you're outside the top 50. It's probably him, and that's maybe it. So if I'm looking to sort of solidify those categories, like he falls a lot, and he could easily be a top 60 guy. I don't think he's got much upside past that, but yeah, I like that scoring boost that I get from him.
Raph, you started out, I believe, with Karl Anthony Towns. More recently, I keep looking for Raph, and I keep seeing Cornet Gamehens. It was Mikal Bridges at 66. You're going to be on the clock here in a minute with your next pick. How are you feeling about the team so far?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm still a bit upset that I missed out on Kevin Porter Jr. by 1 pick. But
okay,
overall, I like what I've got here. You know, guys like De'Aaron Fox, Devin Booker, CJ McCollum. I really like my backcourt. I'll need to get another center at some point, but I'm not too worried about that. I think there's some decent value to be found later in the draft as a second center.
I always wonder, Jonas, I wonder how you feel about this. Like, with a guy like De'Aaron Fox, who's so exciting and explosive, but there are those 2 things, those 2 categories, free throws and turnovers that are kind of obvious weaknesses. How do you approach that? Are you willing to look past that and just take the huge advantage you're going to get elsewhere?
Yeah, I actually brought a De'Aaron Fox stat with me because I was expecting to get him in round 4, and then I'm watching Ant Edwards in the background, then I moved him up. But you got to love Fox. No one watched him last year, so you have an advantage. His last 20 games, he's at 28 points, almost 7 assists, 4 rebounds, 2.1 steals, a half block, 1.7 triples on 48% from the field. Those are just probably second, third round numbers when you think about it. Yes, we do worry about the turnovers and the free throw percentage, but if you can just pump 1 or 2 categories, you have a second, third round play in your hand. So I love De'Aaron Fox this year, and that's an absolute steal where he went.
Josh, where do you land on De'Aaron Fox?
Yeah, I'm big on him as well. He, in that stretch that Jonas was talking about, like he was like 78 or 79% from the line as well. So there is a potential, I guess, for him to improve that free throw percentage. You don't want to bank on it, but it's not an impossibility. And he was putting up just gigantic usage numbers. I do think that there's a realistic chance that he could actually be a top 20 player this year. I'm pretty big on him for this coming year.
Man, that's crazy. Those numbers that you cited are pretty absurd. Yeah, if we're talking about those for a full season, he's going like top 15 at worst, I'd say, probably. Raph, we're coming up on you in a second here, I think. What's the strategy here as soon as Dan picks? You can tell, well, there goes Norm Powell. So what's the pick going to be for you?
I'm going with an old man at the point. I'm going to go with Mike Conley. I think at this point in the draft, and especially in 9-cat, there are some injury concerns. I think decent value here. And with my other guards, I think I'm pretty well covered, so long as there isn't like a rash of injuries on my team.
I like that. I haven't really been able to make a case against Mike Conley, Jonas, and I believe we now have you on the clock. Do I have that right? No, Ryan's on the clock, then you.
Yep. See, I had Robert Covington highlighted here. I really wanted him. I've been getting him around round 7 and round 8 a lot. So my next pick's going to be kind of a surprise, though. I'm going to go a round further. I don't want to tip my hat just yet. I'm on the clock here, but Robert Covington, you can't go wrong. He always finds a way to find his way into the top 50. Like, he's just proven year after year. I still think he has like another year or two in his prime, and he just does everything. And here's going to be my bold pick right here. Mr. Do-It-All, D'Anthony Melton. Oh. What he did on a per-minute basis last year was insane. And I watched Zach Klayman, the Grizzlies GM, talk about him. He said he cleared Grayson Allen to get Bane and Melton more run. We've heard Dylan Brooks and Kyle Anderson are on the trade block. I don't really buy that, but I don't care. I think Melton's going to get easily 25 minutes. And if he hits 30 minutes, we are looking at the next fantasy star. Those steal, block, assist, rebound rates for guard. And he shot, 40% from 3 last year as well. So just an insanely good player. Now, here's the question. I see Josh laughing.
Yeah.
Does Taylor Jenkins play him? That's the question. We just don't know. The guy doesn't know what he's doing. So we'll have to see.
The big reaction from Josh there. Josh, we got to know what was going through your mind when you had that reaction.
I just was not expecting to see D'Anthony Melton go there. Now, I love D'Anthony Melton, maybe not as much as Jonas does, but I'm a massive fan of him. I don't see him getting enough playing time, because that's the factor. Jonas, you can love him, I can love him. Anyone can love how good he is, but we're not out there telling guys to come in and out of the game. And Taylor Jenkins has shown a reluctance to play him in a pretty large role, and I just think I reckon you could have got him 30 spots later. But I understand that he's a guy that you want. I just don't see Jenkins coming to the party necessarily.
Yep, completely agree. He's the closest thing to Robert Covington. I had to pull the trigger there. And this next one, I hate doing this, but he's fallen far enough. I'm taking Ben Simmons here. No idea where he's going to land. He's been linked to every team in the league, it feels like, at this point. But at this point, I feel like I can fit him comfortably in my build. Yes, he is what he is in the playoffs. He's a disaster. Teams can plan around him. But in regular season, he's fine, right? Can't argue with those stats in the regular season.
Yeah, assuming he's on a roster. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
It's a big, wide open question. I mean, I guess if he ends up in the right situation, he could easily exceed, because his numbers have kind of been steadily declining in Philly the last couple of years. And if he ends up in the right situation, I mean, he could absolutely crush.
I was really convinced in the latest workout videos he released. So that got me going.
Raph, can you buy in to Ben Simmons at 86, which is 28 spots after his Yahoo ADP?
I think at that point, there isn't too much of a risk, because I would assume that any manager, Jonas or anyone, would have been able to do enough with their roster before this point to where it's not a major, swing at the plate, so to speak. So I'm fine with it at 86.
Josh, we're going around the room here.
Agree. Absolutely. Like, he was career worst year last year, but whatever situation he ends up going to, you feel like it's going to be better than what it was in Philadelphia. The problem is when that happens. But as everyone said, at this point, look, there are plenty of people that get picked in the 80s and 90s that you end up dropping 3 weeks into the season because it just hasn't worked out at all, or they're a complete disaster. So there's no problem. You can recover from a mistake here. It's hard to recover from a mistake in the top 30.
The Cornet Game Hens are on the clock and have just made the pick. Wow.
Yeah, I'm going with Bojan. I know he was pretty inconsistent last year, but he's coming off the wrist surgery. And also, the whole rehab process was a bit screwy last year for guys just because of the pandemic and all that. I think having a proper offseason to really get rested up, and he says he's back to full strength. So at this point, I don't think you can go wrong with a guy like Bogdan Bogdanovich personally.
I'm just a little floored Bojan went before Bogdan personally.
Same. But hey, Raph is right. Like, after he got that wrist back in action, Bojan was much improved in the second half of last season. He just couldn't hit shots at all to begin the season. I'm a little worried that now he's entered camp with a sore shoulder, and I hope we don't get a repeat of that. But yeah, he was really good down the stretch last season.
I mean, it opens my eyes a little bit, Jonas, to Bojan, who's not on my radar as much. When I see Raph do that, then I start to think about it.
Right. Like, it's probably a round too early for me, but like Raph said, it fits his team well, and I don't necessarily hate it. And there's a couple guys on here I like more. I don't want to name drop them just now because I'm going to be on the clock here again soon. But yeah, nothing to hate there. Should be healthy. The thing about him is he never gets steals or blocks, so it kind of hurts him in the rankings wise. But you're getting 20 points, you're getting 3 triples. You can't hate it. So
we are coming up on you, Josh. Are there any obvious? Well, in fact, you are now on the clock. Any obvious areas of need? Or are you just swinging for upside here? You got your guy lined up?
I think I just want to annoy Steve and take Harris. I know that he would have taken me about 40 spots higher than this if it wasn't for the back issue. But I think, much like we talked about with these other guys, we're at a spot here at pick 94 that if it doesn't work out, then I think I'm okay with that. So I'll just take Karis LeVert.
How do you, Josh, reconcile the report from Woj that he's got a stress fracture in his back, but it's not considered a serious thing and he could be back near the start of the season? Don't those sound like kind of contradictory ideas?
Oh, it's terrifying. Like, if stress fracture in the back, I'm just like, there's no way. But when he's falling 30 spots below where I probably would have considered him prior, like if they say he's going to be ready for the start of the season, even if he misses a couple of weeks, that's fine. And if it doesn't work out again, it's not going to kill me. But I think the upside risk, much like taking Simmons in this area, is absolutely justified because if it hits and he is actually ready to go opening night, then I've gained 2-3 rounds of value with that pick.
I love that pick. Are there any other reactions from you, Jonas?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, too, we're factoring in TJ Warren's going to miss who knows how long. So LeVert's usage is going to be through the roof. We're looking at 25, 5 and 5 potentially every night. His percentage is a big thing, really improved last year. You can definitely see the steals and blocks are slowly climbing up. That used to be a huge problem for him. But yeah, at this, especially in this pick range, Karis LeVert is a huge plus here. So I like that pick a lot.
Kelly Olynyk just went 96 to Steve Alexander. He followed that up with Tyrese Maxey. Kelly Olynyk was one of 10 players worth reaching for, as written up in the NBC Sports Edge draft guide by Raphielle Johnson, who actually looks not too pleased that Kelly Olynyk got taken right there. Raph, is that what the look on your face means?
Yeah, he was in my queue. I had a feeling it was a bit of a long shot for him to get back around just because he's such a different center from Isaiah Stewart. So good for Steve to kind of, make that move. But, yeah, I'm not too happy about it.
Well, maybe you can make this next pick a revenge pick towards Steve. I think we just saw Josh do something along those lines. I'm here for all of the proactive Steve Alexander sniping that we can get into this.
Yeah, well, Steve, I sniped LeVert off Steve. So it's back to my pick. And then he took Olynyk, who I was going to pick. So I guess we're even there. Now, it's a 2-center league. I've got 2 centers, but Yahoo has slotted Holmes into my power forward slot, a position he literally never plays. But that's fine. I need to get another center here, and there's not many good ones left. And I don't even think this one's a good one, but let's take Mason Plumlee. And I feel pretty dirty saying that, but I am going to take him there.
Anyone? Hey, Jonas, can you make a positive case for Mason Plumlee?
What was his nickname again? Was it Squeaky Dimes?
Squeaky Dimes. Mr.
Squeaky Dimes.
Squeaky Dimes himself. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually don't hate that pick because I'll tell you why. He was actually really good for Detroit. The issue is he was on a tanking team, so they were eventually going to shut him down. The Hornets are a legit team. They could finish anywhere from 6th to 12th. You never know, but they're going to keep him in the whole year. Kai Jones, as much as I love him, I don't think he's going to play that much this year, maybe minutes in the teens at most. Mason Plumlee's locked in to a fantastic role. He has LaMelo throwing him the ball, so all signs are pointing to a big season for Mason Plumlee. That's a great pick of this round, especially in 2-center league.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like Jonas noted, Kai Jones, he may not be ready. The other 2 young centers they have aren't really ready either. You're talking about Nick Richards and Vernon Carey Jr. Only concern would be of how much they try to play PJ Washington at the center spot. But I think with the addition of Plumlee, they don't really have to do that too much. So, yeah, I'm on board with that pick as well.
One of the more intriguing guys you'll see at or after 100, Jonathan Isaac goes there. Josh Lloyd. Are you pro or against drafting Isaac, given everything we know? No timetable for return, from his knee injury, but obviously a potential league-winning steals and blocks force if he gets back on the court kind of soon.
I think they're going to be really cautious with him. They're obviously not playing for anything this year. I wouldn't be surprised if he sits back-to-backs all season. Now, it's been 14 months since he tore that ACL. So that is an extraordinarily long time frame. And if he's not ready to go opening night, I know it's back-to-back knee injuries that he's had. That's a long time. Like, you can get back from an ACL in 10 months. And if he's not ready, like, opening night's 15 months. Like, it's a very long time. So I'll be very surprised if he misses a chunk to begin the year. But they will go really easy on him. But at pick 100, like, this is a guy that if he plays 30 a night, the top 50, he probably smashes that number. And the worry you have there is games played. But around here, it's fine.
Yeah, I just like to add.
Yeah, go ahead, Jonas. Yeah,
I completely agree. I mean, we were talking about a guy who was on pace for a top 15 season. We've seen the Sean Marion comps, like this insane block rate. His three-point shot's really working for him now. But like Josh said, back-to-backs likely going to be rested the whole year. Maybe the last month and a half of the season, let's sit you 2 or 3 games. You never know. 4 games to 5 nights, let's sit 2 of those. He's going to be a headache in those cases, but at pick 100, you're getting a player who's a year and a half removed from top 20 numbers. So, yeah, great pick here. Absolutely.
A wry smile on Raph's face as he selects Jalen Suggs, 103rd. Raph, are you pretty pleased with that pick?
I am. I thought a couple of the rookies may have gone a little earlier than at least for me, they went a little earlier than expected. You look at Cade Cunningham, I think he went in the 5th round. I think that's a bit high for me, but Suggs in Orlando, Markelle Fultz is out indefinitely as he recovers from that ACL tear. Cole Anthony's never really, I don't think he's done enough to sell them on him being the point guard of the future. I think Suggs is that guy. And also in Yahoo Leagues, he's got shooting guard eligibility as well. So I didn't really need another guard, but at 103, I felt like a good time to take a swing on Jalen Suggs. I don't know if he'd be back around next time I came up.
The free fall is over, by the way, for Bogdan Bogdanovich. He goes 105th, 15 spots after Bojan Bogdanovich. And Jonas, you just picked, so quickly want to hear about Jaden McDaniel before we say goodbye to you guys.
Yeah, huge fan of Jaden McDaniels. He only played 30 minutes, I think 18 times last season. He was at 11 points, 5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 0.7 steals, which should go up, by the way, 1.2 blocks and 1.6 triples. He was doing a lot more in summer league. That won't be the case during the regular season, but it's just good to know that he has it. So when he's ready, he'll get there. Just a 1-1 player in the steals, blocks, and threes. A lot of upside. I mean, if Chris Finch is calling you Scottie Pippen-esque, like, you take note of that. Like, that's a huge saying. So definitely an obvious breakout candidate, and there's no risk here in this pick range. So love Jaden this year.
I have a request. Can Yahoo give Jaden McDaniel small forward eligibility, please?
Yes,
Yahoo.
More in the
if you're listening. Also photos. We had some photo requests the other day too, right? We need some headshots. Jaden McDaniels, I love it, guys. That was fun. Raph, Jonas, Josh, appreciate you guys stopping by. See you guys soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The Bet the Edge podcast has what you need to make informed basketball wagers all season long, thanks to the invaluable insights and advice from Sarah Perlman, Drew Dinsick, and the rest of the Edge betting crew. Airing live on the NBC Sports Edge YouTube every single weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Our dynamic hosting duo and their various guests will have every angle of basketball season covered, from props and totals to futures, spreads, and everything else in between. And if you prefer to consume the show in audio form, be sure to subscribe to Bet the Edge anywhere podcasts are found. All right, our final group is here, coming up in a second to draft rounds 10 through 12, and hopefully gift wrap us all some thrilling late-round options. That's Jared Johnson from NBC Sports Edge, Vaughn Dalzell from the aforementioned Bet the Edge podcast. Jared's already shaking his head as he comes in. Vaughn, okay, I got to talk to you about, wait, is that a Hawks jersey? Okay, we're going to talk in a second. No, it's not a Hawks jersey. Oh, it's a Bulls jersey. Okay, and Jonathan Wasserman from Bleacher Report. Fellas, how's it going? Vaughn, first of all, what's the jersey?
Zach LaVine, the new Bulls superstar. Well, I guess not new, it was out of the last couple of years, but my favorite player. Had to own his jersey. Kobe White's next. Big Bulls year. I'm super excited to be a Bulls fan this year, and that's for the first time in like 5 years.
Jared, I've been hearing about some big reactions from you in the green room. Is everything okay? You've been quite animated from what I hear.
I feel okay. First off, Steve freaking trolled me. He picked Nickeil Alexander-Walker in a ridiculous round. I think it was like 6. Renee is just like inside of my brain. She stole Gary Trent like way earlier than I was expecting. I guess I was happy to get Isaac that late. You guys already talked about that, but man, I am. It's not going exactly according to plan, but you know what? I think I'm gonna figure this thing out as we get to these last few picks here.
John, you had one of the big buzz selections with Kevin Porter Jr. at 65th. How are you feeling about your squad overall?
I feel pretty good. I mean, you always kind of want to make that sexy Kevin Porter pick and take him a little bit early. A few of the picks I had earlier with KD, I mean, I never go into a draft like expecting KD, but when he's there, you got to take him. And then, of course, Kevin Porter, one of those guys that you kind of highlight on your board and maybe reach around earlier to get, knowing that there's going to be a lot of interest from other guys.
Well, John, you are about to be – in fact, I think you're on the clock right now. So why don't you, if you have a pick ready, why don't you take us through what you're doing here?
All right. I'm going to go with a guy who, kind of like what I just said before, this is probably a reach, but I bet he's going to be very popular even after tonight. And that's Scottie Barnes. And listen, I do draft scouting for a living. So obviously there's some bias here, having covered Scottie since high school. I think he is another Draymond Green, at least in terms of fantasy stats in the boxes he checks. And I think Toronto's going to have a difficult time keeping him on the bench, even when Siakam returns. And for a guy who plays multiple positions, rebounds, passes, should have a decent field goal percentage, I think he's going to make more threes than he did at Florida State. And so I feel really good about his versatility and again, the ability to check boxes.
Vaughn, do you have any strong feelings about that Scottie Barnes pick?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I was going to say, John, I followed all your coverage a lot for the NBA draft, so thank you for Scottie Barnes coverage because I got in on his under in time. So nice. Before that one was pretty obvious to everybody. I like Scottie Barnes a lot of upside for him, especially with Spicy P missing some time right off the bat. I was looking at Spicy P. I passed on with my last pick, or my 2 picks prior, 2 rounds prior, and I was pretty upset about that. And then I was like, okay, I'll double back and get Scottie Barnes maybe in the next round, not the pick that I just had. And then John got him. So, a little bit of resentment there for my part. But I'm high on Montrezl Harrell. I mean, I think he can have a really good year with Washington if he gets the time needed. But I took Klay Thompson as well, which obviously he's not going to play for a couple months. But when he does play, hoping he's going to be the superstar that he once was.
All right, now that brings us to you, Jared. Your round 10.
I'm ready, man. It came to me.
What were you reacting to there?
What's up?
You sounded excited.
I have it ready. This one's for you, Matt. This one's for you. This pick right here is for you. Okay. I think it's a really great pick. I think everyone's sleeping on this guy. I think everyone's terrified of this guy. I'm not worried about his knees. So there it is right there. I think that's excellent value, and I'm very happy to have that dude fall to me.
I love that pick. I was just talking about him on the podcast earlier today, and I like the next pick too, Miles Bridges to Josh Lloyd. But first, on Deandre Hunter, John, what do you think? What do you make of Deandre Hunter coming off 2 meniscus surgeries last year and falling, into the 120 range in some drafts?
Yeah, I mean, Hunter, listen, it's going to come down to health, and Atlanta is deep. They have a lot of options, so they don't really have to force him back. They don't have to play him big minutes, but when he plays and he's healthy, he's good, and he's going to be a valuable piece to that team. And, when they drafted him 4th overall, a little bit of a surprise, but it really goes to show what type of player that they think he could be at both ends of the floor. And I think in terms of fantasy, he's got to shoot the 3 ball well, which he's been doing. Is he going to have the chance to create a little bit? We've seen flashes in the past. Atlanta, again, is so deep now. So, I question a little bit of how much playmaking and scoring he's going to do, but he should be an efficient player. And his role is going to be make open shots, be opportunistic, attack open lanes. Again, I think he's going to have good percentages I question the counting stats a little bit, but if he's healthy, he's clearly going to be a valuable piece to that team that's on the rise.
Vaughn, how you feel about Jalen? I'm curious.
What, Jalen who?
Jalen Green.
Oh. Are you asking Jonathan that?
I am asking Jonathan.
Okay.
I'm just curious.
Jalen Green is going to lead all rookies in scoring. I mean, I think that's one of the easiest bets to make this year. The question is efficiency. I mean, he's going to be top 2 option on that team with Christian Wood. Defenses are going to load up on him. He doesn't have a great point guard to play with, although, I picked Porter. I think he's going to do a nice job doing some playmaking. Yeah. But with Green, it comes down to the decision-making, shot selection, and, how consistent he can be through 82 games. He was pretty impressive efficiency-wise in the G League bubble, playing up against older guys. And so I have some confidence that he could do it again. But there's no doubt in terms of production, it's efficiency. That's the question mark in terms of fantasy.
100% agree. Yeah.
We're at the end of round 10, guys, so a couple rounds left. And I wanted to ask about the guy who went a couple picks ago, Miles Bridges. We all know he was just tremendous down the stretch for Charlotte. Gordon Hayward was out. Vaughn. I'm having a hard time personally figuring out what to do with Bridges, but I don't know. I just think this is a case where I bet on the talent maybe when he falls this late.
Yeah, certainly the talent. I mean, this guy, Money Miles Bridges, I made a lot of money on him in the prop market last year, just betting on his points alone. He always just 1 or 2 points over. But, yeah, he's a guy that just can get it done. He's so athletic and gifted in that range. He'll probably play the 3, slide out the 4 a little bit. P.J. Washington last year played some of the 5. So I could definitely see them choosing to roll those 2 out there and just give that athletic ability, especially since P.J. Washington stretched the floor and hit the 3 too, as can Miles Bridges. So a lot of upside there, but there's so much talent on that young Charlotte team that he might not get as much minutes or many shot attempts that you would like for as gifted as he is talent-wise. But, I mean, at this late in the draft, 10, 11 round, I mean, you're not going to get many guys that are more athletic or better than Miles Bridges.
I would agree with that. And we just saw one of the speaking of draft prospects, John, we're going to have to get your thoughts on Josh Giddey, the fantasy prospect, the number 6 overall pick in the NBA draft, just went 123rd here. John, what are your impressions? Do you think this guy can make a quick transition to the NBA without destroying fantasy teams in field goal percentage?
Yeah, that's a good call right there. Athletically, he's going to have a tough time creating separation, and he's not going to score a ton. But for his position, obviously the assists are going to be there. Even with Shea, I think that Giddey's going to play a lot, and he's a good decision maker. He's going to get those assists, and he's going to rebound for his position. He's probably going to struggle to make threes on a consistent basis. Right, his field goal percentage is going to be rough. His free throw percentage isn't going to be a plus for his position. Steals and blocks, he might be a plus blocks for his position, but he's going to play a lot, and he's a good late round pick. But yeah, you're going to give up some in a couple of categories.
Jared, I think we have you on the clock now, right? Oh,
yeah.
No, almost. Oh, you just went.
I just took a flyer on Mobley. I don't really feel I did not plan on drafting him. But it's the second to the last round, and this guy has a ton of upside. I don't love his situation. I like that they got rid of Nance, but then they brought back Markkanen, and I don't know if he's going to compete for minutes like backing up Jared Allen, or is he going to start? Did they just pay Laurie all this money to come off the bench in a 6-man role? I'm not sure, but like I said, it's like the second to the last round. This guy was the number 3 overall pick, and if his situation was better, I don't think he would be sliding this far. So I just took a flyer on him. Yeah.
I really like that next pick as well. Well, 2 picks after that, Sadiq Bey, Vaughn. Is that a guy who's on your radar?
Yeah, yeah, he actually was. I'm trying to get younger over here. My team is a little agey, little elder over here, some of these guys. But, yeah, so I was definitely looking at him. Sengun, good pick, John. I was looking at him too. There's a lot of guys, not a lot of guys, but there's a couple guys out here. I'm up in 3 picks, so I feel like I can talk about who I want. I am looking at Wiseman here. He'd be a young guy that's coming back from injury. I've already taken Klay Thompson, though, so I don't know how much I want another guy that's injured. But there are so many young guys out here, and you got to look for teams that certainly can just let these guys run their minutes and have their fill of the litter when it comes to playing on these worst teams. So anybody like the Rockets or Thunder, they're good picks at this point.
Yeah, your ears and eyes have to perk up a little bit when the guy who scouts NBA draft talent takes a guy like Şengün. That may move him up my draft board a few spots. John, do you want to quickly make the case for him before Vaughn picks?
Yeah, man, he's going to play. I mean, he was the MVP of the Turkish League last year at 18 years old. Like, the Turkish League is real deal. I mean, those are real dudes in that league. And he was the best player, most productive player, fantasy-wise, points, rebounds, field goal percentage, free throw percentage. He looked pretty comfortable from three in summer league. He'll get you block shots, averaged a couple of them in summer league. So, I mean, to get him this late, I mean, I know he's going to play. I mean, who else is going to play center 30 minutes a game in Houston? And that team has nothing to play for. It's going to become about player development real quick there. And they're going to give him the opportunity to play through mistakes. And so I just don't see how he's not productive. And maybe he's not as efficient as he was overseas. But he's going to get you a lot of counting stats.
I like it. And Vaughn, now we have you on the clock for 2 picks. Are you able to talk us through this as you're doing it?
Yeah, so I think I might go with a guy that impressed me a lot last year, and he was under the radar when it came to fantasy and betting. I think I might go Lou Dortz here. Still a guy that, not going to like fall off the face of the earth when it comes to being on the Thunder, but I do think he could still be relevant at, the 11th, 12th round. I got the wraparound right now. So I like someone like him. I was looking, I wanted Şengün. He was a guy I was looking at too. Tate was another guy, and Mobley, they were all on my queue. I was pretty excited about Evan Mobley just because I missed out on Jalen Green, but I'll take Lou Dort here. As far as this next pick, I honestly have no idea because I was looking at Nicholas Claxton, but I don't think he's going to get the minutes to be a guy worth taking in fantasy right now. I don't know if anyone else has an opinion on that to maybe boost my ego here. Help me out.
I'm kind of low on him. They have like a lot of centers. They have Paul Millsap. They re-signed LaMarcus. I don't know. I love the kid. He has great potential, but man.
Well, all right. There's 2 guys here actually. I've been looking at that I forgot about. Jonathan Kuminga, another guy I feel like could have some upside right now, especially with the Andrew Wiggins COVID situation going on. Kuminga could be a guy that plays a little bit more. Cam Reddish, I know that's probably your guy being the Hawks fan, but I think I'm gonna go Kuminga here. Take a flyer on a rookie.
Just as Wiggins got vaccinated. He
did get vaccinated now.
He did get vaccinated.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think Reddish is a good one, honestly.
Yeah, I like Kuminga. We're going to roll with Kuminga this late in the draft. Take a flyer on a rookie since I haven't taken one rookie in this draft, which is pretty surprising because I had like 4 on my radar.
Yeah, the Giddey one was brutal. That was right before me. Ugh. Josh and I are actually going to have an ADP battle, and he knows that we're actually going to be debating that specifically. So I feel like I got trolled on that one.
We're into the last round, guys. We're a couple picks away from John making his last pick. Any late round flyers left on your board, John, that you like? You don't have to name drop them quite yet, but is there anyone you're circling here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go with probably Killian Hayes if he's there. I know he had a pretty rough rookie year, but from what I'm hearing from the beat writers in Detroit, he's like got a new level of confidence. Even with Cade there, he's going to play, and he's going to be the point guard of that lineup. He's a really, really good pick and roll passer, and I think maybe after a year he gets a little more comfortable. And again, if that confidence translates to shot making, he's going to have open shots. And so as a late pick, listen, when I evaluated him, I had him as a top 5 prospect, which is probably going to look wrong, but I still have faith in him. He's really young. And sometimes it takes him a while. Even overseas, it took him a little bit to get going. And so maybe by his second year, he could have a little bit of a breakout. So I'm hoping that it happens for him.
Yeah. I agree with you, man. I was very high on Killian Hayes last year and didn't quite work out, but I think that we shouldn't write people off after 36 games. I mean, he was a very high pick, and you're taking him in the last round here. I mean, it's a great upside.
Quickly, we're coming up on we're coming up on Jared's last pick. So, Vaughn, I want to hear your closing thoughts on your squad. Your stated goal was to get younger there at the end. You accomplished that. How are you feeling about it after 12 picks?
I did. I considered Andre Drummond here in this spot just to kind of do a fantasy football thing and, get your backup running backs, starting running back, get the Latavius Murray or the Kamara when he was on the Saints. But I didn't do that. So I kind of looking at that one as a something I should have did. But Trae Young and Joel Embiid 1 and 2, I can't complain with that at all. I mean, I'm getting, as long as Embiid plays, that's the number 2 center, possibly number 3 center, MVP type of guy. Brogdon and Moran, I was really happy with that upside because they all get points, rebounds, assists, good defensive most parts. The mid round of my draft is where we went different. I had to get one Chicago Bull out of rep, so I got DeRozan. But other than that, my team I think has a lot of upside. But there's some drop ability here. Like I could easily drop Kuminga in 2 weeks. Could end up dropping Montrezl Harrell if he doesn't work out. Wendell Carter Jr. At some point throughout the season he could end up not being as a bigger rotational piece. So interested to see, but happy I got Trae Young and Embiid to start out, and Zion. How did I not even mention Zion Williamson, the freak of nature? That was a gift. So thank you to whoever didn't draft him in the 3rd round.
Jared, it's your final pick, so take us through and then quickly give us your closing thoughts on your squad.
There's a lot of stuff still on the board. We only went 12 rounds. So I'm kind of debating between these 2 guys that are, I can say the names. So I'm debating between Devin Vassell. He didn't look great last year, but he's going to start, I think, and have tons of opportunity. And the other guy I'm looking at is Malachi Flynn. Just because, Nick Nurse was playing 2 PGs last year. The only thing that steers me somewhat away from Malachi is my faith in Gary Trent Jr. having a big year. So I think I'm just going to pick up a guy who maybe has potential, has shown us nothing, and is an easy guy to cut if things go wrong immediately. So I'm going to go up and pick Devin Vassell. I think that the Spurs have a great system to build their team and their players. So that's why I went with him.
All right, John, we're almost at the end of round 12 here. We're almost at the end of our 12 rounds. We will have a post-draft roundtable coming up, but John, I want to get your final thoughts on your 12-round draft.
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty good. Kevin Durant was gift wrapped to me. I had a tough time saying no to that. My big pick, I guess, was Bam Adebayo, 2nd round. My kind of theory is Kyle Lowry's going to take some assists away from him, but I think Bam's going to try and become a shooter. And so if he adds a jumper or a 3-pointer per game, or probably not a full 3 per game, but if he adds that to his repertoire, he again checks a lot of boxes. Hope Porter, really breaks out this year. Middleton is exactly what you're going to get from him. And Mitchell Robinson, I'm a New York guy. I've watched Mitchell since he's a baby. He's put on a lot of weight. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to not foul every 10 seconds, but if he gets his opportunity, he's going to block a lot of shots, give you field goal percentage, rebounds, steal. So he's a unique center to get late if he can stay on the floor.
All right, gentlemen, we are at the end of our 12 rounds. Jared, Vaughn, Jonathan, appreciate you guys coming by.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, right now we're going to bring in Ryan Knaus, Steve Alexander, and Josh Lloyd for a post-draft roundtable here. We're going to look at each of these guys' squads and what went right, what maybe went wrong. Steve, we'll start with you. You picked first. As we know, you took a certain Dallas Maverick first overall. Controversy right off the bat, Steve. Take us through your draft.
Pretty much, yeah. I just don't feel like I can do a fantasy draft in this public of a forum without getting my guy. And I'm the Luka Doncic fan club president. So I took Luka, and it's controversial. The free throws, as we know, have cost me some jerseys throughout the years, and also maybe cost me a fantasy championship or 2. But the only guy I didn't get that I really, really wanted was Kevin Porter Jr. But I got Luka, I got LaMelo Ball, who I love. Kyle Lowry, I think for where I got him, solid point guard. As you guys know, assists are at a premium here. I also got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who I think is going to have a breakout year. Maybe I reached a little bit for him. Maybe I didn't. I definitely reached for Tyrese Maxey, but with Ben Simmons on his way out in Philadelphia, that's another point guard that I've got in my stable, and I feel pretty good about it. I have enough centers to get by in a 2-center league. I don't know how many of them I love. Miles Turner's very good. Shot blocker, 3-pointers. And Jarrett Allen, I think, is going to have a real good year. But I feel like my team is pretty deep. I also did something I hardly ever do, and that's draft a Spur. I went with Keldon Johnson. Somebody's going to have to score for that team and put up numbers. And I feel like Keldon Johnson could be sneaky this season. But I do think maybe the key player for my team that I really need to produce is Tyrese Maxey. If he has a good year, I think my team's going to be good.
Steve, you're right. You took Alexander Walker pretty early. As we're doing this draft, the Pelicans are playing their first preseason game, and he's actually not starting. They're starting Najee Marshall and Garrett Temple ahead of him. Does that worry you a bit?
A little bit, but I mean, Garrett Temple, come on. He's been in the league forever. I don't see how NAW does not have a big year for New Orleans this year. And Eric Bledsoe's gone. He was the guy holding him back last year. I really have a hard time believing that Garrett Temple is going to be the reason that NAW doesn't have a good year. So I'm not too concerned. It's also the preseason.
Yeah, Steve. So Luka Doncic, you're the president of the fan club. You still didn't have to cast reason aside at the number 1 pick, which is obviously Nikola Jokic, but I understand. I tried to talk you out of this decision. You wouldn't be swayed. So be it. Listen, if you weren't the president of the fan club before, you definitely are now. But in terms of your team build, I mean, you came right around and then picked LaMelo Ball and Michael Porter Jr. at the turn. Absolute slam dunk for me. I love that. I think both guys have the potential to put up first-round value if things break right for them. So, I mean, risk with Doncic up top, but I think you nailed picks 2 and 3. So I love the way you started this draft.
Well, I love Renee saying that I make unusual picks all the time, and she knew that was coming. And I like the way that you said that was a kind way to put that Steve is insane.
How about Garrett Temple blocking like an exciting young player for like the 35th consecutive year? I mean, you got to give him credit at some point. It's pretty impressive. Let's look now at your team, Josh. You were picking out of the 3 spot. You start out with Steph Curry. Take us through your draft big picture overview.
Yeah, so obviously I was expecting Steve to go with Doncic there at 1, and then my decision was going to be between Curry and Harden. And if I knew for sure that Kyrie was missing, 41 minimum games, then I probably would have taken Harden over Steph. But I think Kyrie will end up getting vaccinated, and that drops Harden down a little bit. So I went with Steph. I think it's pretty safe. He probably doesn't do what he did over the last 2 months of last season, but that's fine. I'm happy with that. LeBron is not someone I really ever draft because usually he goes way higher than I'm ready to take him. But at the start of the 3rd round, I'm more than happy to take LeBron there, especially with a couple of high free throw guys early on in Curry and Levine. So I got that. And I think there's a couple of guys that, much like everyone seemed to be upset about missing on Kevin Porter. He was in my queue when he went. But I was happy to get a couple of guys late that I thought slid a little bit in Colin Sexton, Karis LeVert, and Miles Bridges. I thought those guys might have gone 15, 20 spots lower than I would have been expecting them to, so I was able to get those guys on my team at the end. I think that strengthened how the squad ended up looking.
Yeah, I think Josh. D'Angelo Russell is set up to have a pretty big year in Minnesota, I think. So I kind of like that pick too. That seemed a little sneaky. Your big men are interesting, in Rashawn Holmes and Mason Plumlee and Yusuf Nurkic. I feel like Nurk was a little bit of a letdown last year. Plumlee is squeaky dimes, as I like to call him. Sneaky dimes there with Plumlee. I kind of like that. Hopefully Karis LeVert's injury woes are behind him. He just can't seem to get healthy and stay healthy and put together the breakout season that we're all waiting for. But I was going all in on Karis LeVert early, but then this whole back thing makes me a little nervous. So I waited too long, didn't get him. But
Steve, Josh Josh made that pick specifically to anger you. That was he called you out before making LeVert pick.
I'm not angry. I've got him in a couple of our leagues. We'll see what happens, but I love Karis LeVert.
Yeah, Steve, what happened? What happened there? Oh, sorry, Ryan. What happened there, Steve, is that you and me spoke about this, and you were like, "I'll go Karis in the top 50." Then, of course, the back injury news came out. That's where we're in the 90s. I'm taking that risk. I got Steve's going to be upset here. And then the guy that I wanted on the turn back around, you took Kelly Olynyk, who was who I wanted to come back around. So I think we ended up all square there.
Nice.
And I liked, Josh, your explanation of why you took LeVert. You're right. The risk is ameliorated when you're getting him in round 8. I was a bit surprised as the draft recap just vanished from my screen, making it harder to talk about people's teams. I was surprised you took, was it LaVine in round 2? I'm a little more hesitant because of the DeRozan factor and Lonzo Ball there with some playmaking, and Vooch obviously is going to be an offensive force. Are you just banking on the efficiency kind of ticking up for LaVine to make up for some lost volume?
I'll tell you what it is, Ryan. Like, it's great to have a pick at the top of the first round, Curry or Jokic or Harden or whatever you're doing up the top there. The back end of the second round, it's a bit of a disaster because it's just all these guys where I'm just not sure. Like, if this was last year's LaVine, it's a great pick, but I don't know what's going to happen with him and DeRozan and Vooch. I don't know how that's all going to work out. And then the other guys in that area, well, there's Michael Porter. Maybe I'll take him. There's Donovan Mitchell. Is he going to take a step up into that area? There's just about 10 guys who are really big unknowns in that area. And again, you're right. I wanted to get some scoring in. I feel confident that LaVine's going to at least keep a pretty high level of efficiency, which is really important early on pretty large volume. And I think he will have a bit of a drop-off. But the other guys around that area, I just wasn't convinced on them.
That makes perfect sense.
Zach LaVine, to me, has improved dramatically each year he's been in the league. Like, he's really become a good player. And I don't know if having new pieces around, like super boring DeMar DeRozan, is he really going to stop Zach LaVine from being the man? I don't think so. And I feel like LaVine had a great Olympics. I feel like his confidence has never been higher than it is right now. Like, I think that's a pretty safe way to use a pick at the end of the second round.
DeRozan's boring, but they paid him a lot of money, and he had almost 27% usage last year. So just saying.
It's going to be interesting. I don't know how that's all going to work out, but what DeRozan has been able to do is improve as a playmaker. So maybe they just put the ball in his hands and go set these other guys up and have LaVine play a little bit off ball more and still take those same amount of shots, because LaVine's decision-making when the ball's in his hands and distributing isn't anywhere near as good as what it is for DeRozan. So maybe DeRozan and Ball handle that, and LaVine just becomes almost a pure scorer in that role.
Right, but either way, his floor is solid.
Yep.
Let's look at Ryan's roster real quick. This started out with an early disaster, potentially, with you auto-drafting Kyrie Irving while helping Aaron Robinson with his audio snafu. But Ryan, looking at this draft overall, I'm going to let you start out and then the other guys jump in. I just want to say I am dreading all my fantasy drafts with you based on your trio of Robert Williams, Daniel Gafford, and Mo Bamba. I am not looking forward to drafting with you, sir.
I came in hot with the high upside centers. Again, this is a 2-center league, and after the Kyrie disaster, I went with Ayton, then Tobias Harris, then Robert Williams, and I decided after I got Terry Rozier was on the board in round 6, I picked him and I decided, well, I'm punting assists. I really didn't have a prayer at that point. It's like, what am I gonna pick up Ricky Rubio in round 10 and try to salvage this thing? No, thank you. So I just started hoovering up bigs, managed to land Siakam at 87, which is much in the same vein as the Karis LeVert situation, where he's going to miss, well, in the case of Siakam, we know he's going to miss some time to begin this season. That's not that disastrous. And when he comes back, he could be putting up top 40 or better value. So on a per game basis, with that type of production potentially looming and available for the fantasy playoffs, and I got him at pick 87, and he's center eligible, so I'll take that all day. But yeah, I love the upside between DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams, Daniel Gafford, and Mo Bamba. And then I just piled on 3-pointers and low turnover guys at the end to try to win that category.
Ryan, I think this is a good teaching moment, a learning moment for maybe guys who are newer to doing fantasy drafts online. Like, even if you're going to be sitting at your computer and your internet connection is good, it still never hurts to set a queue and to just be ready for when disaster happens. had you set a queue, I doubt Kyrie Irving would have been at the top of your list, and maybe your draft would have gone completely differently, because now your backcourt, like you said, you're punting assists. You really are light on point guards. You're light on assists. It'll be interesting to see how your team does. I'm interested in it just because the league is so point guard heavy now, and fantasy hoops is very point guard heavy, and assists are such a big deal, it seems like. So I think you've got an interesting experiment on your hands there.
Assists are a big deal, but again, they're only one category, I feel okay with that. And this isn't, Roto, where I'm just going to get a 1 in that category and be sunk. It is head-to-head, so I like it in that regard. And hey, if at the end of the day I'm just a cautionary tale for people to set a queue, that's fine too.
Well, Ryan, I did a mock draft yesterday, and I was too busy talking, and I ended up with John Wall. So it could have been worse for you to end up.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Josh.
If Kyrie does get vaccinated, it ends up being like a steal to get him in that area, because he's a guy that even on totals last year was like a top 12 player. So there is a huge amount of value there. I was pretty annoyed when you took Gafford in that last pick, because I think, again, the value of getting those centers, and he's going to start as the starting center this year. I don't know what happens when Bryant returns in a couple of months, but we'll figure that out later on, and at that late spot. And you mentioned the Siakam one, how it was very similar to LeVert. Well, Siakam was the guy I was going to take, and then you took him, so I had to go down and take Caris LeVert. So I think your team looks pretty strong, and I've seen it, and you guys have probably seen this in a lot of the drafts that you do. The teams that don't chase after assist and punt that assist category, they end up really strong, because, as we've said, like looking at point guards and looking at assists, that's how things get driven, but everyone just goes all in on them. And if they're all going all in, these other guys just slide down, and you don't have to prioritize getting those categories where everyone just goes in the top 50 or 60 to try and get point guards. You can let it fall till later on, and you can come out with really strong teams, which I think you have there, Ryan, especially if that Kyrie one doesn't come back to bite you. The team ends up being strong just by foregoing that category that everyone's chasing after earlier.
Yeah, that was my only chance.
I just wish you would have taken Josh Richardson to go along with Tim Hardaway and Seth Curry. You could have had the Mavericks Philly trifecta connection there. Yeah.
There's always the waiver wire, Steve.
Before we go, guys, I want to quickly get your impressions of some of the other teams. Let's just go around the room quickly. Any team or pick or anything that stands out to you as a winner? You can't call yourself a winner tonight, and ideally not someone else at our round table here. Ryan, let's start with you. Who stands out to you? Anything you really liked that someone else did?
Well, I'll go, as we've said multiple times, she got an assist in the first round, but I'll go with Renee Miller. I thought her team was very strong. Started with Jokic at number 2. Then she picked up SGA, one of everyone's favorite breakout players, most improved candidate, so forth. Then Julius Randle, who's just a, counting stat monster, poised to be potentially even better after his breakout year. And then DeJounte Murray, right on down the list, then Isaiah Stewart. So after 5 picks, multiple breakout candidates, guys, on the ascent, and she went big guard, big. And I just love that, to start out your draft with that type of both positional pickups and breakout potential. I thought it was a fantastic start to her draft.
Yeah, Renee, I was kind of surprised that she took slow-mo Kyle Anderson as early as she did. I had my eye on him because I'm a slow-mo guy, but I was a little surprised by that, but I also liked her draft. Another one I think we have to talk about, since he's not here to defend himself, is Jared's team. Jared's always the most entertaining guy in the chat room in these drafts, and he's very vocal. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's 1 minute he's in tears, and the next minute he's standing up on top of his desk dancing. But started off with Jimmy Harden. He's got Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, Jonathan Isaac, and DeAndre Hunter, both who have knee issues. Those two guys are sort of, to me, the key to his team. He's going to need one of them to step up and be healthy. But then again, he got Jalen Green, which I like. I just don't know how much we're going to see Jonathan Isaac and DeAndre Hunter this year. I actually had DeAndre Hunter all queued up myself, but missed out on that. And thank goodness Jared got Clint Capella, so I get to hear that again all year on our chats. And then Rudy Gobert and Clint Capella, man, that's a solid 2-center starting lineup right there.
Yeah, Jared's when Jared took Clint Capella, that was the most obvious, or maybe not the most obvious pick, because Jonas picking Jaren Jackson was probably the most obvious pick. But when he was talking it up in the chat room, he's like, "Oh, I'm going to take this guy. It's all over for you." I go, "I know it's going to be Capella," and there it was. The team that I really like here is Dalton's team. I look at his first 5 or 6 players, and you could make an argument that they all could be top 25 guys. Is Tatum, VanVleet. Like, you lock them in as top 20 guys. Chris Paul is there. He's had so many top 20 seasons in his career. You got Porzingis, and if Jason Kidd reinvigorates him, no reason he can't be back to being at least close to that area. Last season, for the last 3 months of the year, Draymond Green was a top 25 player, so he got him, and he got Christian Wood. So that's such a strong start to a team. And one of the biggest, I think, sliders in this entire situation was Bogdan Bogdanovich, who went behind the other Bogdanovich and went like in the 110s, maybe. Like that's 105. This is a guy that I know he's not going to shoot 45 or 46% from 3 again like he did last season, but he was a top 70-ish player last year, and getting him all the way down there, that's a huge steal when you've got already so many. There's risks with Paul and with Porzingis, and even Wood with that ankle that kept him out and his poor free throws last year. But there's just so much upside in all of those players that he took.
I have no idea how I came out of this draft without Christian Wood or Chris Boucher. One of the two. That's just not very Steve-like.
You were flooded with endorphins after getting Luka Doncic.
You were delirious, Steve.
You lost your way.
After Luka, LaMelo, and MPJ, I'm pretty sure you totally blacked out right after that.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, Ryan, Steve, Josh, appreciate you guys sticking around, and thanks for drafting tonight, guys. That is going to do it for us. Want to say before we go, with the NBA season approaching, check out our draft guide at NBC Sports Edge, rankings, projections, exclusive columns, and much more. And keep it tuned to our player news page for all the updates you will need to get ready for the season. And don't forget to check us out on the Roundball Stew podcast on our YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, thanks to all of our experts for drafting. Thanks to all of you for watching or listening with us. For our whole NBC Sports Edge crew, I'm Matt Stroup. We'll talk to you soon.